When did you last ask yourself which version of yourself died without your permission? This isn't the kind of question that slides comfortably into casual conversation. It's the kind that arrives uninvited at 3 in the morning when the digital glow finally dims and you're left with nothing but the echo of your own thoughts. But here we are, standing at the edge of an uncomfortable truth that Carl Jung would have recognized immediately. We've become strangers to ourselves, and we've done it willingly. We inhabit an era where thinking has become a form of physical pain. The mind, once humanity's greatest instrument of liberation, now recoils from its own function, like a muscle that's forgotten how to flex. Questioning has been reclassified as a subversive act, dangerous to the social order that depends on our mental passivity. The silence that once nourished contemplation has been murdered by an endless stream of notifications, each one a tiny interruption that fragments our consciousness into smaller and smaller pieces until we're left with nothing but digital debris where our thoughts used to live. You wake up and immediately reach for your phone, not because you need to, but because the absence of stimulation has become unbearable. This glass rectangle contains what you've been told is the entire world, compressed into a manageable format that fits in your palm. But when the screen goes dark and you're forced to confront the reflection staring back at you, what remains? Jung spoke of the shadow, that part of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. Today our shadow has become our entire existence. Everything we are exists only in relation to the screen, and everything we were before has been relegated to the darkness. Modern culture operates under the pretense of entertainment, but entertainment is just the socially acceptable word for anesthesia. You're not being entertained, you're being systematically numbed. It's a trap so perfectly designed that you thank your captors for the privilege of your own imprisonment. While you believe you're staying informed, invisible hands shape every piece of information that reaches you. While you think you're connecting with others, algorithms ensure you remain isolated in echo chambers that feel like community but function like solitary confinement. And most insidiously, while you believe you're thinking, you're actually just recycling pre-approved thoughts, like a broken record playing someone else's song. Consider this. When did you last read an entire book without checking your phone? Not skimming, not multitasking, but truly reading, letting another consciousness inhabit your mind for hours at a time. When did you last sit alone with your thoughts without feeling invaded by a nameless anxiety that seems to come from nowhere but actually comes from everywhere? The design isn't broken. It's working exactly as intended. You are not broken. You are being deliberately broken, piece by piece, thought by thought. We've been programmed to exist in a state of perpetual reaction. Instant emotions, immediate rewards, dopamine delivered on demand like treats to a laboratory animal that's learned to press the right lever. But in this experiment, the lever is your attention, and the treat is validation, so cheap it's essentially worthless. Yet we hunger for it, because hunger, unlike satisfaction, can be manufactured and maintained indefinitely. Jung understood that the unconscious doesn't simply contain repressed desires, it contains everything the conscious mind refuses to acknowledge. Today, what we refuse to acknowledge is our own complicity in our mental enslavement. We've handed over our cognitive sovereignty to algorithms that know us better than we know ourselves. These systems understand your fears, your triggers, your secret shames, and they use this knowledge not to heal you, but to control you. They bombard you with emotional noise, polarized politics that require no nuance, manufactured scandals that dissolve within days, fake debates that generate real anger, all of it designed to keep you in a constant state of agitation. Because an agitated mind cannot think, it can only react. And a mind that only reacts is a mind that can be steered. This is not accidental ignorance we're witnessing, it's strategic ignorance. We live in the so-called information age, yet we're also living through an era of unprecedented intellectual poverty. Knowledge has been devalued to the point of worthlessness. What matters now is not what you know, but the appearance of knowing. Confidence has replaced competence. Arrogance masquerades as insight. Everyone has been given a voice, but few have anything meaningful to say, because meaningful things require time, reflection, and the kind of deep thought that doesn't fit into the attention economy. Technology promised liberation but delivered a more sophisticated form of bondage. It's a golden cage, beautiful and comfortable, decorated with high-definition screens and seamless user experiences. But chains don't become less effective just because they're aesthetically pleasing. True freedom isn't the ability to say anything you want. That's just noise, privilege. True freedom is the ability to think for yourself, to trace the origins of your thoughts, to distinguish between what you actually believe and what you've been conditioned to believe, and this capacity, perhaps the most essentially human capacity, is dying. The ability to think, to pause, to ask whether what you feel and believe actually belongs to you or is simply an echo of collective programming, this is becoming extinct. Introspection has been replaced by exhibition. We no longer turn inward to discover who we are. We turn outward to curate who we appear to be. Wisdom has been replaced by viral quotes that sound profound but mean nothing. The sacred silence in which insight is born has been murdered by constant noise, constant stimulation, constant everything except the one thing consciousness requires: space. We're raising generations who believe wisdom can be compressed into a tweet, who think reading headlines is equivalent to understanding complex issues, who believe that arguing means shouting, and being right means being louder. But Jung knew that the loudest voices are often compensating for the deepest emptiness. The person who must constantly prove their intelligence is usually the one who doubts it most. Meme culture has effectively lobotomized critical thinking. We laugh at everything because laughter is easier than analysis, and analysis requires confronting the possibility that we might be wrong, or worse, that we might not know who we are. It's easier to consume than to contemplate, easier to react than to reflect, easier to live on autopilot than to take conscious control of your own existence. But there are consequences to this intellectual abdication. A society that cannot think deeply is a society that can be manipulated effortlessly. We become emotionally fragile because we've never learned to process difficult emotions. We lose our sense of identity because we've never taken the time to discover who we are beneath all the programming. We become people who explode at the slightest criticism, who find offense in everything because we haven't developed the psychological resilience that comes from genuine self-acknowledgement. The most tragic irony is that in this age of unprecedented connection, we feel more isolated than ever. The soul cannot be nourished by likes. The spirit doesn't grow through 5-second videos designed to grab attention and immediately release it. The mind doesn't strengthen on a diet of empty motivational phrases that promise transformation without requiring change. So, what remains when the noise finally stops? What's left when you strip away the digital personas, the curated presentations, the endless stream of content designed to make you forget that you exist? Resistance remains. Not the kind of resistance that makes headlines or trends on social media, but the quiet, persistent resistance of the human spirit, refusing to be completely colonized by forces that see it only as a resource to be harvested. This resistance begins with the most radical act imaginable in our current context: reading an entire book. Not scanning, not skimming, not multitasking, but surrendering your attention completely to another consciousness for hours at a time. It continues with the even more subversive act of turning off your phone for an entire afternoon and sitting with whatever emerges in that silence. It grows stronger when you begin thinking before expressing opinions, when you start doubting before sharing, when you begin to treat your own mind as something sacred rather than something to be casually discarded. The most brutal exercise of all is learning to be with yourself without distractions, to observe your thoughts as they arise without immediately judging them or trying to make them disappear, to not be afraid of the void, because Jung understood what our culture has forgotten. Only in emptiness can something genuinely new be born. Everything else is just rearrangement of existing patterns. What remains is the possibility of rebuilding conscious communities. Gatherings of people who don't seek virality but truth, who don't want to please but to understand, who don't repeat popular opinions but question established assumptions. These communities don't announce themselves because they don't need external validation. They exist in the spaces between the noise, in conversations that happen when phones are put away, in relationships built on genuine curiosity rather than mutual entertainment. Conscious silence becomes a tool of warfare against a culture that profits from your constant stimulation. In a world that screams, silence becomes the most powerful form of rebellion. In a society where everyone has opinions about everything, thinking without immediately speaking becomes revolutionary. It's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about being awake to the ways your attention is being harvested and your thoughts are being shaped without your consent. But make no mistake, this awakening will not be comfortable. You exist within a system specifically designed to seduce your attention away from itself. Your consciousness is literally the most valuable resource on the planet right now, and every major corporation, political entity, and cultural institution wants a piece of it. The battle for your mind is not metaphorical, it's the defining conflict of our time. The question becomes, to whom will you give the gift of your attention? Will you continue to hand it over to systems that see you as nothing more than a data point to be monetized? Or will you begin to treat it as the sacred resource it actually is? This isn't about perfectionism or purity, it's about awareness. It's about developing the capacity to ask yourself, is this thought mine, or has it been implanted? Is this desire authentic, or am I following a script someone else wrote? The greatest rebellion today is not shouting in the streets, though sometimes that has its place. The greatest rebellion is thinking. Because thinking means becoming the owner of your own mind again, and a mind that owns itself cannot be controlled, cannot be predicted, cannot be harvested like a crop. Think about this. The powerful no longer need armies to maintain control. They just need to control your emotional responses. If they can make you react without thinking, they've already won. They want you emotionally unstable, constantly triggered, perpetually outraged, chronically exhausted. They want you fighting with your neighbors about issues that were designed to divide you, while the real mechanisms of control operate invisibly in the background. The cage is there, but it doesn't look like a cage. It looks like a news feed, like social media, like entertainment, like progress. Every time you scroll, someone else decides what you see. Every time you react, someone measures how you respond. Every time you share, someone calibrates their understanding of how your mind works. You believe you're making choices, but the choices were predetermined. You believe you're expressing yourself, but you're actually just revealing yourself to systems that know how to use that information against you. Freedom begins when you start questioning what you consume mentally, emotionally, spiritually. When you stop accepting everything as truth just because it comes packaged in attractive design or delivered by trusted sources. When you begin to understand that emotions can be manufactured, that outrage can be programmed, that even your deepest beliefs may not actually belong to you. This is the silent collapse. Jung would have recognized, not the dramatic fall of civilizations, but the quiet turning off of minds. It doesn't make a sound when consciousness dims. It's only noticed by the emptiness it leaves behind, like the absence of songs you didn't realize you were no longer hearing. But the collapse is not inevitable. As long as there exists one person who reads deeply, who writes truthfully, who doubts productively, who observes carefully, who dares to remain silent while everyone else screams, there remains hope. Because wisdom doesn't die, it only hides, waiting for someone to have the courage to seek it out. The challenge before you is deceptively simple. Rebel. Don't let them buy your attention. Don't let them program your desires. Don't let them turn you into a shadow of who you could become. Read books that require effort. Reflect on questions that don't have easy answers. Listen with your heart rather than your algorithm-trained responses. Above all, protect your mind as if it were the last sacred thing in existence. Because maybe it is. And now, having come this far, let me ask you the question that changes everything. Who thinks for you when you're not thinking? Because if it's not you, then it's someone else. And that should terrify you enough to finally wake up.